with the camel. You'll see the camel in your bulletin. I hope she's been riding a camel and, no? Is this going to be in the way, if I move it, am I going to break something?
Do you want me to speak into it?
Yeah, if you wanted to stand on the side.
Okay.
Is this yours?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll take it though.
Mark, is this yours? Or is it left over? Oh. Okay.
Where's mine, Ivan? Okay, is this good? Everyone can hear me? Yes. Everyone can see? Okay, so I am going to talk to you today about, for those of you who don't know, the last year I spent in Cairo, Egypt, and I was working for an organization called Engineering Ministries International. And what they do is provide subsidized engineering services for different Christian missions and ministries all over the world. So my office in Cairo specifically dealt with the Middle East and Africa. And we would go on project trips to visit these different ministries or missions and then spend 2 weeks there looking at their site and then work with local engineers to provide a design for them for things like schools, hospitals, orphanages, anything that ministries needed for their work in their country. So that's the bigger picture of what I was doing. I know the expectation is when you stand in front of a large group of people and talk about your missions trip to tell the glamorous kind of miracle stories of conversions and healings. And I do have some of those stories, and I would love to share those with you if you ever want to get together. I love sharing stories. If you want to talk to me after church, I'd be very happy to do that. The story I bring to you right now, though, is what I feel is maybe an untold story of missions, which is the everyday life. So I'm going to run through maybe what was a typical day for me on most days, and I'm going to speak about one day in particular that had more of a significant impact on the rest of my time in Cairo. So I'm going to start you at the very beginning. This is the view from my second-story apartment, which I share with 2 other interns who work for this organization with me. One of them is Becca from Alaska, and Lucy from Egypt, and we share this little apartment. We work together, we live together, we eat together, we sleep together. We would often joke that we were having a good lesson to learn how to be married because we just had so much concentrated time together, which I'm sure you could imagine was a challenge some days. But nonetheless, we wake up to this view. I'll just point. And head downstairs, and the first thing we see is this. So these are what we would lovingly call the garbage kitties. The garbage system in Cairo is such that you leave it in a pile on the corner of the road and kind of wait for someone to come around and collect it. In the meantime, the cats have at it. This is a little bit much for my stomach first thing in the morning. I would often wait even to get to work to have breakfast. Not all of these cats were alive every day, and at the best of times, I don't really like cats, but ones covered in garbage and dying was definitely hard first thing in the morning. So we would head to the office in what could be up to 45 degrees Celsius. Wasn't that hot every day, but I would definitely best describe it as walking through an exhaust pipe. It was just hot, dry air into your face, which made for a nice, sweaty entrance into work. And we would come to this road. So there were 2 problems crossing this road. The first is that there aren't very many cars on this particular day, in this particular shot, but the fewer cars there are, the faster they're going. And it could be anywhere from a 3 to 5 lane road, depending on the traffic. Cars are moving at high speeds. There's no pedestrian crosswalks. There's no stop signs. There's no speed limits. And you're just praying for your life every day you cross this street. And while doing that, as a foreigner standing with another foreigner at the side of the road in a 98% Egyptian population, you tend to stand out a little bit. So in your attempt to navigate and leapfrog your way kind of through these cars, you have people yelling at you out the window, sometimes nice things, sometimes things in Arabic. We didn't always know what they were yelling, but you stand out so much that you're just a great source of attention, which on most days for me was just kind of uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to feel like the whole country is watching you try to cross this street. So you can go to the next one. And finally, we would arrive at our cute little office. So this is Lucy in the foreground, my Egyptian roommate, and off to the side is Becca, and I'm in the back. We would work here, and I would proceed to work on this. So this is just a picture of my computer screen. That is a design for a lagoon that we were creating for a hospital in Cameroon. I won't go into all the technical details of that, but it's basically to hold wastewater. And you might think, oh, that looks kind of neat and impressive. Did you design that? I did not. My job was to take all of those white lines and zoom in on them really close and click on them and change them from white to gray, or change the green lines from light green to dark green. And this was just so that it would print properly, basically, so that it had enough contrast so that the people actually constructing this lagoon could read it properly and construct it well. So, it's important, but you can imagine most days it was all I could do not to just, my eyes felt like they were bleeding by the end of the day. It was just such concentrated, tedious click, color change for up to 8 hours. Meanwhile, outside, we have this. So in Cairo, there are these donkey carts, and these men have a full-time job of walking up and down these side streets of Cairo and yelling at the top of their lungs whatever goods they're selling in the hopes that someone from their apartment or office building will come down and buy it. So all day long, they're up and down the streets with these donkeys yelling, kabucha, kabucha, or bekya, bekya, whatever they're selling, and hoping that they're going to have customers. On top of that, our office is right on a corner of an intersection, and the custom in Cairo is not to stop at an intersection, but to continue to drive through it while blaring your horn, to let the other vehicles coming through the intersection know, I was here first and I'm going. And so all day long you have these Egyptian men yelling, you have these car horns blaring, you have the call to prayer happening 5 times a day. So while I'm fixated on these lines, I'm in the background hearing noises of all kinds all day long, which just adds another level of stress to a very tedious work. And finally, we would head home. Crossing streets like this one, we would often pick up groceries at these stands that looked like this, fumbling our way through our Arabic, again, gathering a lot of attention, and trying to carry these very heavy groceries through very chaotic streets, weaving through people and cars and donkeys. And we would finally arrive home, and it would look something like this. So that's really the untold everyday of life in Cairo. I want to tell you about one particular day where, after all of this had occurred for my day, we got invited by Lucy's aunt to go to a dinner party. Now, the last thing I want to do after a day like this is attend an Egyptian dinner party for 2 reasons. One of which is, after a mind-numbing day, the last thing I want to do is take all of the Arabic that's been crammed into my head over the past few months and try to remember it enough to carry on what looks like some semblance of a conversation, but I know is mostly just going to be me nodding and smiling and not understanding what's going on and trying to appear charming and nice, but I can't communicate with anyone. And the second of which is, I know there will be a ton of Egyptian food there. And I love Egyptian food, but I have learned by this point that Egyptian food does not love me. And when it's not making me ill, it's making me gain weight. And I don't know how both of those are simultaneously happening, but they are, both of which are a great source of anxiety for me, as you can imagine. But nonetheless, it's kind of rude to turn down the invitation. So we head out to, back out to this street, into the madness to catch a cab, like one of those. And we finally get a cab driver. There's only one problem, which is with Lucy and Becca in the back. There's no room for me to sit in the back, which doesn't seem like a big deal, except that we've been told specifically women do not sit in the front seat of the cab. It's just kind of a safety custom, and you're better off sitting in the back, just further away from the male cab drivers. But I'm stuck. There's no room. I have to sit in the front. So I very tensely sit down with this acute awareness of the driver beside me and just fixed eyes on the road, and I'm just waiting till we can get there. I just want this cab ride to be over with. And we get almost to Lucy's aunt's house, and he pulls over, which is strange, and starts saying something in Arabic, which I don't understand. And Lucy starts having a conversation with him, and I don't really know what's going on, and I can hear Lucy whispering something to Becca in the back seat. And I'm just kind of waiting, and all of a sudden, Becca starts praying for this cab driver in English, and praying for his health and also his daughter, who was apparently about to have surgery. And then we continue on our way. And I'm kind of confused, and we carry on to Lucy's aunt's house, and instead of feeling this sense of wonder and amazement, wow, Becca just got this chance to pray for this cab driver, and what an amazing thing, I am furious, because I cannot believe that I could not know enough Arabic by this point to keep up with this conversation, know what was going on. I didn't get to pray. I didn't get to have this nice, miraculous conversion story, and I didn't get to do anything, and I was so upset. And we got to Lucy's aunt's house, and I got out of the cab, and I just lost it, like 4-year-old meltdown, lost it. And when my roommates realized that I wasn't breathing so much as heave sobbing, they kind of sat down with me and waited out this episode. Kind of asked me what was wrong and if I was okay. I didn't really know how to explain to them why I was so upset. I mean, nothing had happened. I'd had an ordinary day and a fairly ordinary cab ride, but it just had overwhelmed me. So you can go to the next one. This is a picture from that night. I'm in the back there. If you ever want to know what my fake smile looks like, it's that. So this is the Egyptian dinner party. I made it through the night. I kind of put on my best smile, fumbled my way through my Arabic, ate some food, and just kind of waited for the night to be over. I just wanted to be in bed, and I wanted to sleep and maybe just skip work the next day. But I think what came from that day was a really important change for me, which was that I realized that even life abroad, even the missionary life, becomes an everyday life. And when you put it in those terms, my life looked very different than life in North America, but it still became a routine. I got up, I went to work, went to have dinner with friends, went home. And I realized what really mattered is the story that you make of that everyday life. Because if I started at the beginning of the slideshow at the first picture and I told you of this great experience I had had with roommates who I became so close with that they'll probably be the best friends I've ever had, and this wonderful opportunity to work for this great organization where I got to be a part of a project for a hospital that was going to save lives, and these great cultural experiences of getting to have authentic Egyptian food with an Egyptian family and getting to practice Arabic and learn a whole new language, that would be a very different story. And so I learned to start telling myself a different story. And when I did that, this beautiful thing happened where my everyday life became a miraculous story of God's love and joy and work in my life. So you can go to the next picture. I was part of a monthly spa night for these Sudanese refugee women. And at first, being really frustrated that I couldn't communicate with them at all, because they didn't even speak Egyptian Arabic. They spoke Sudanese Arabic, which is again different. So I had even less ability to talk to them. But there was this just a really beautiful way of communicating with them where I just got to paint their nails and pray over them silently and experience the joy of getting these women to see and delight in remembering how beautiful they are. I found a little patch of greenery near our office just outside of a mosque, and I love nature, so this was my little nature break. And I would often take my coworker Nancy there, who is another Egyptian coworker in our office, and we would have lunch and we would just talk about the struggles of being a woman in Egypt and her life. And I had the opportunity to tutor these little girls in English. So even though I couldn't speak Arabic very well, I got to teach other people English, which was pretty neat, and rediscover what it's like to be a kid who just enjoys learning. And I could enjoy learning. I could embrace the discovery of Arabic and culture and language and different climates. You can go to the next one. I didn't have a picture of the kids, so this is just a thank you card that they made me. But I got to coach at the international school. I got to do one of the PE courses while one of the coaches was injured, and also be part of their very first science fair. And I made these bond with kids who were in the same position as me, trying to fit into a very different country and a very different culture than the one that they're used to. I started a series of workout sessions with my roommate and coworkers, just other women, just to take time away to embrace the fact that we are healthy and learn what it means to appreciate our bodies and their health and feel good about them. And I did the best I could to embrace the culture. I did not dress like this every day. This was kind of for fun. But nonetheless, I learned how to tie a hijab, and I did my best to, I used my discomfort as a foreigner that stuck out a lot as incentive to keep learning Arabic and keep figuring out and navigating and making my way through Egypt. And in learning how to do some of that, that gave me the opportunity to meet other Muslim friends and visit mosques with them and learn about how they see God and how they see religion and Islam. And you can go to... And I even made friends with a couple of garbage kitties. So I think I just wanted to share that one of the biggest lessons that I think that I took away from missions is that being in a different country did not make me a missionary. Being a follower of Christ makes me a missionary. And no matter where I go, life is going to kind of turn into an everyday routine life. But what matters is the story that I make of that. And I try to carry that into even today, being kind of unemployed, maybe a little lost, maybe feeling a little directionless. I have this alternate story that I can tell of God setting aside this time of peace and rest and after a very stressful year, and giving me the opportunity to remember his love and trust him for whatever the next opportunity that's coming, trust that he's preparing me well for that now. So that's the story I had to share with you today. Thanks for letting me do that.